Amazing to listen to how they praise Massa for how wonderful he is and how he has done amazing things for them. And there was one particular person, and it's no disrespect on this sister. It's fine. I'll play it myself. It's no disrespect on this sister, but I'm sorry, I gotta say it. So for Alicia Cook, who is from Washington D.C., she had a grandchild who was killed as a result of gunfire in Washington D.C. And so she goes to the podium and she says this about the great white savior Donald Trump.
One thing I like about him, he keeps it real, just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him because he tells exactly how he feels and what he thinks. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched, I rallied, I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied and nobody heard me, Democrats. Get mad at me. Until this Republican sent his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, okay, you take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh time. Just that simple. And then we need National Guard, and which we did years ago. He brought it on. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it.
Okay, so Felicia, you don't want us to hear you. You don't want us to criticize you. Okay, Felicia, if you were sitting in that chair or in this studio, then I would look you in your eye and I would ask you to defend this. You talked about the murder of your grandchild, and you said Democrats didn't hear you. You said that they allowed you to testify before Congress. Can you please tell me which party has been trying to control the out-of-control guns in this country? Is it Trump, MAGA, and the Republicans, or is it Democrats? I'll wait. While you're at it, for Alicia, let me remind you that when Donald Trump initially got back into the White House, Donald Trump did something. And maybe you should go talk to that black family. Maybe you should go talk to the black family of a man who died. That man who died was Hilton Brown. Felicia, maybe you didn't see this story from March of 2025. DC officers reinstated after conviction in man's scooter crash death pardoned by Trump. For Felicia and all of you who are the help with the White House, let me remind y'all that these two officers, Terrence Sutton and Lieutenant Andrew Zabavsky, as you see, the story says here from NBC Washington, Hilton Brown, Karan Hilton Brown, had been riding a motorbike without a helmet as Sutton pursued him in an unmarked car. Prosecutors said the chase went on for 10 blocks before Sutton followed Hilton Brown down an alley at what prosecutors call an unreasonable speed. When Hilton Brown left the alley, he was hit by a car, suffered head trauma, and died in a hospital a few days later. He was 20 years old and the father of an infant. Felicia, it says the U.S. Attorney for D.C. says Sutton and Zabavsky failed to preserve the crash scene for investigators and turn off their body cameras. This is the quote from the prosecutor. As Mr. Hilton Brown lay unconscious in the street in a pool of his own blood, Sutton and Zabavsky agreed to cover up what Sutton had done to prevent any further investigation of the incident. The office said in a statement that went to trial, Felicia, and the officers were convicted and sentenced, but Donald Trump chose to let them off. Felicia, I'm not done. In Los Angeles, there was a Los Angeles County sheriff who was convicted and found guilty of federal civil rights violations. This is the DOJ website, for using excessive force against a woman. So this woman was videotaping the officers arresting and beating a man outside of a supermarket in June of 2023. And so it says here that Kirk and another deputy, they were responding to a possible robbery at the store. They arrived on the scene and handcuffed and detained a man matching the description, while the victim, identified in court documents as JH, who matched the description of the female suspect, recorded the deputies on her cell phone. While recording, JH told Kirk that he had a legal obligation to inform the man of the basis of a forced detention and that she was broadcasting his actions on social media. Well, Kirk then decided to pepper spray her, and then he also placed his knee on the woman's shoulder and cocked his right arm back with a clenched fist. He, "Stop or you're going to get punched in the face." Kirk then pressed his knees into her neck. She said, "Get your neck off my, I can't breathe." So Felicia, do you care about that black woman? Oh, I'm sorry. You heard me say that he was convicted. But the new U.S. Attorney for Donald Trump then came in and offered him a post-conviction plea bargain. I'm sorry, Felicia, allow me to say it again. He was tried. He was indicted, tried, convicted. And as they were preparing for the sentencing, the new U.S. Attorney comes in and says, we are going to offer him a post-conviction plea deal. It was something that rarely ever happens. It was very strange. Oh, and the prosecutors in the case, they actually stepped off. So what happened, Felicia? He was allowed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor after the felony conviction. Okay, Felicia, since you say he's not a racist, I don't want to hear that racist stuff. Did you know that there was a settlement in Alabama where black people had sewage backing up into their yards and backing up into their house because white officials would not properly install sewage lines and pipes there? Under Biden-Harris, a settlement was reached in order to fix the problem. Oh, but your savior, your little G God, Donald Trump, the man who you sat there and fully embraced, that man, Felicia, canceled the settlement by calling it a DEI settlement. Felicia, you may not watch this show, and so you may not be aware that there's a group of black people in Louisiana in what is called Cancer Alley who are suing petrochemical companies because black people are dying there due to the chemicals from those plants. There was a lawsuit, and the Biden administration had joined the lawsuit. Oh, Felicia, did you know that your little G God, when he came in, pulled out of the lawsuit by citing DEI? So you say Donald Trump, it cares about the murder of your grandchild, but he didn't give a damn about the literal killing of black people in Cancer Alley there in Louisiana. Felicia, you may not watch this show. They may not have covered it in Washington, D.C. But that was a HOA in Dallas that had been discriminating against black and low-income people. It was a 2-year investigation. The Biden administration was ready to take it to court. Oh, but your little G white savior God, Donald Trump, canceled the investigation. They were cited as DEI. Also, when there was a hurricane in Texas, the federal government sent billions of dollars to Texas. Well, the Republican Governor Greg Abbott refused to send money to Harris County because he didn't like that it was blue. And so that would negatively impacted black and Latino people. For Alicia, Donald Trump canceled that as well. Felicia, you may not realize that there's a federal procurement program where some $700 billion is spent on federal contracts. Well, the DBE program generates some $37 billion of the $700 billion. You may not realize that 2 white men in Indiana filed a lawsuit saying that the program was unfair. Felicia, were you aware that Donald Trump's minions in court said that Donald Trump wants to get rid of the entire program? Oh, now, in 2024, under Biden-Harris, black businesses got $10 billion of the money. Now, mind you, that's only 2% of the total program, but it was the largest amount ever. But your little G, small God, the white supremacist himself, Donald Trump, they said they want to get rid of the program. Felicia, see, I'm not done breaking this thing down because we can go story for story. See, I don't even have to go back to the 70s when Donald Trump and his daddy was hit with the HUD by HUD with an investigation for refusing to rent apartments to black people. I don't have to go back to the allegations of racism against Atlantic City employees. I don't have to go back to all kind of other stuff this man did. See, I could talk about just what happened last year. We could talk about the Pentagon, HHS. We could talk about the canceling of billions of dollars in grants for black maternal health. That's for black women to be taken care of while they are pregnant. Oh, but the pro-life would say they care about life. They cancel scientific grants. Oh, I know your little G God stood up and talked about how he guaranteed funding for HBCUs. Let me correct you. That was a program put in place under George W. Bush, reauthorized under President Obama. It ended. Trump had no idea about this program. The bill was put forth by Congresswoman Alma Adams of North Carolina, the co-chair of the HBCU caucus. Trump had no idea. Oh, Trump said that, oh my goodness, we're locking down the funding of this. Well, here's the problem for Alicia. It's only some $225 million. The HBCU portion is about $85 million of the $225 million. The rest goes to Hispanic serving institutions. They're 107. So can you tell me how 107 really gonna do something with 85 million? This is what happens when you have real facts. Donald Trump has targeted black people. Felicia, you talk about your grandson being killed in Washington, D.C., and that is highly unfortunate. And I understand your pain. But when Donald Trump's Doge got rid of USAID, do you know how many people are expected to be killed in Africa as a result of that? PEPFAR, really the greatest thing that George W. Bush did as president. Do you know they pulled that funding so they don't care about HIV/AIDS in Africa? Can we talk about the books being pulled, the books being canceled at West Point? Can we talk about what has been happening, how they have been targeting colleges and universities? We can literally lay out a whole buffet of anti-black legislation, an anti-black agenda by Donald Trump. But because they came to visit you at your house and sit with you and invite you to a meeting, you decided to go before the national cameras and hug your man and talk about how amazing he is. And you talked about how wonderful and how great he is. And you said, I don't want to hear none of that stuff about racism. And then white women like Savannah Chrisley, they go on The View, and then what they do is repeat the same nonsense, which is devoid of facts. So here's what happened this morning.
For me to witness is people stating that the president is a racist, because I've seen him firsthand. He saved one of my best friend's lives, a black woman who has been with him for 18 years. So he has a black friend. He's a racist. No, he saved her life. No, he did.
Okay. He's a racist. Here's the problem, Savannah, and why we have a different take on it. Many of us have a different take on it, because when you target DEI programs with executive office, from your with executive orders, your first week in office, arguing that the policies undermine national unity. You know, when you shared racist posts about the Obamas, when you pursued the death penalty for the exonerated 5, after you knew they had been exonerated. These are the reasons that his behavior is so hard. And I don't know whether you know about this, but in the 70s, he was accused of discriminating against black tenants because he wouldn't rent to them. He didn't want them to build.
Was that an accusation?
No, that was a proven fact. They took him to court. The lawsuit was settled.
Y'all, it's real easy to find black folks who can dance for massa. You got that Negro preacher out of Detroit, Lorenzo Sewell, who thought he was delivering his I Have a Dream speech during the inauguration, calling the Obamas the most evil ever. Same thing. But when you lay out all of these anti-black things, can y'all dispute them? The answer is no. Let me remind people, and it's very clear, there often were black people who went and told massa when people of African descent were trying to escape. Do know that there were people who informed on civil rights leaders to the FBI. Do know that in that picture of Dr. King shot on the balcony of Lorraine Motel, one of the first people who was there kneeling where his head is was an undercover CIA agent. Let me be clear, that were undercover informants who were sitting next to Malcolm X. There were undercover folk informing on the Black Panthers. So it has always been in our history very easy to find anti-black people doing the bidding of white oppressors. My panel, Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show, Sirius XM Radio. Airs every Saturday on Sirius XM. Glad to have her here. We've got Cameron Trimble, CEO, Hip Politics Media and former Hip Politics Media and former White House Senior Advisor, joining us from D.C. Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University from D.C. as well. Reese, take it away.
Well, I mean, you done said everything, Roland, but I was trying. I don't want to be calling a black granny all kind of MFs and Bs and stuff. So I'm just going to have some grace because she's probably still hurting and traumatized. But I do think it is important to point out this whole notion that nobody cared. The person who murdered her grandson was convicted and sentenced to 16 years in jail. So, and it wasn't like random violence. It wasn't like a carjacking or something like that. And Donald Trump was the president when her grandson went missing. and he was found in Maryland. Larry Hogan, Republican, was the governor. So there's no correlation or connection between who was in charge and her grandson's death. So I don't even understand what point she's getting at, other than to do the bidding of white nationalists, to be a foot soldier. But what I do take issue with, I'm gonna set her aside because I ain't gonna drag Granny. That's I'm not gonna do that. What I do take issue with is this is supposed to be a Black History Month celebration. And what you have to offer up in terms of Black history is a 22-year-old kid getting killed by an online date's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. That's Black history. Like, we ain't been in this country for centuries. Like, we haven't contributed all kinds of inventions, all kinds of advancement. Like, we don't have a rich history that's worth celebrating in and of itself. Now, I know that you're not going to get people of substance and any kind of stature to come to the White House, but y'all can have a little lecture. Y'all can have a little history lesson, because Donald Trump didn't even know that Frederick Douglass was dead, okay, when he went to the Black Smithsonian. So there's clearly work to be done, but this is more propaganda from this White House to try to paint Black people, to paint Black-run cities as savages, overrun by crime, so that they can engage in their lawlessness. So in addition to all the racism and all the things that you've already laid out, it's just a slap in the face that this is even a topic at a Black History Month celebration at the White House.
Cameron?
Yeah, I'm not going to go in on Granny because I think we all have, I don't know if we all have, but I even know in some folks and for friends and family who have still seemed to be under some veil or some under.
Hell no, ain't nobody in my damn family. Not my brother, not my sisters, not my cousins. I don't know. Ain't nobody rolling up in the Martin Lamont family with a Make America Great Again hat. Trust me, bring your ass with that bullshit, you're gonna get checked.
I hear you. When I say family, I mean the broader family of Black folks in general, in the sense that you laid it out quite nicely, just in the sense like we can trace all the way back to slavery or even back to Africa in terms of there's always been Black folks that have been there helping the oppressor for whatever reason, whether financial gain or just straight up brainwashing. But what I will speak to from a personal experience, having been in the White House during Black History Month, like I think seeing the juxtaposition of no celebration of actual history and accomplishments of Black folks versus what we were able to do in the last administration, coming out of the pandemic, and the first ever public gathering post-pandemic was the 2022 Black History Month program, and just seeing the joy in one room and just kind of like the denigration of Black folks in another, and more importantly, I think in a month like this, when there's just been a year plus of erasure, of disrespect of Black folks, of disrespects of Black people in the military, all of our contributions in the government, in the culture, in the arts, removing so many folks out of their jobs. It's just disheartening. I don't understand how we're still arguing whether he's racist or not. I mean, I think that's baked into the cake, and the people who vote for him either know that publicly or at least know that in their heart. Like, there's no way around that. So it always feels like we're kind of almost being baited into an argument that we can't really win with people who don't want to believe us, but we still need to keep calling it out. Donald Trump is racist.
Hey, but look, and here's the whole deal. I'm gonna lay out the facts, Greg. I did that, Granny, and I had some little punk, sitting here, Javon. I think he worked for that fool. Worked for that fool Byron Donalds. I said, I dare you to bring your ass on this show. Talk about the policy. Let's go. See, they want. So it's real easy to say, I don't want to hear no racist stuff. Okay, we gonna show you all the anti-Black stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you support Donald Trump, you're either a racist, an opportunist, or you've been promised something or received something already. Those are the only ways you can support him. As for Miss Cook, listen, Gil Scott-Heron had a song, Inner City Blues, and he said, you know, another set of victims to whip the choose. You recognize that feeling. It's the inner city blues. So, I mean, Miss Felicia Cook has the inner city blues. She said and you know, I give her not only credit, but much respect as a recovering addict, as a self-described recovering addict. She said, I was an addict 31 years clean. She said, when my grandbaby was born, I decided to change my life. And that young man lost his life in Southeast DC, killed by a man almost twice his age. Apparently, he was having sex with this woman that this other guy was dealing with. This guy who got the 16 years, as you said, Reese, sentenced by a judge that was appointed by Barack Obama. The judge that gave him 16 years. She's a member of the Asian American Pacific Bar Association. I'm sure that would drive Donald Trump crazy. But I'm raising all those things as a backdrop to say that she has no factual support for anything she's saying. She herself's not a racist, I wouldn't assume. But I don't assume anything about Black people simply because of the color of their skin. Now, she claims to be a Christian. And I think she's the kind of Christian that Pastor Doug Wilson would absolutely embrace, because Wilson is a purebred white supremacist and an open enemy to our common humanity. And he is not a Christian. This is the damage of Christianity. Let me just be kind of candid here for a moment. She is a Christian in the mold of the slave master's religion. There are many Christians. You talked to Freddie Haynes last night. And of course, Jeremiah Wright, we can name them, Vashti McKenzie. Go down the list. Many people who say you're a Christian. Those white people are not Christians like you're Christians. You're not praying to the same God. And finally, when we break their political backs, early voting in Texas, North Carolina, if you're in there, make sure your registration is tight and they go in there and vote. We got to break their political backs. When we roll over these racists like the sea, we will be doing it on behalf of victims like Felicia Cook, who has been driven crazy by her grief, who clearly received an inferior education here, as we talked during Black History Month, as Carter G. Woodson would say, the miseducation of the Negro. It's a miseducation Negro. And as far as that Negro who is hollering and calling out of Detroit, the young man who has clearly been misshapen by his own diseducation, we're going to get some measure of justice for all of you. But what you won't get as we do this is another opportunity to speak in public on a platform, because you need to have a complete re-education. Right now, you're a victim, a pawn, and that's just too bad.